Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. First off, Happy New Year to all my viewers. It is officially 2017, specifically the very early hours of January 3rd, 2017. And for the new year, I thought I would talk about a new band. I'm going to talk about Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It's about time. All this United Kingdom early 70s prog stuff, I figured it's kind of mandatory to talk about ELP. I am going to talk about King Crimson eventually, but hold your horses, it won't be for a little while. I will eventually talk about King Crimson. For now though, ELP is going to be my next band, and I think it's kind of fitting really. Obviously in 2016 we lost both Keith Emerson and Greg Lake, very sadly. And yeah, we lost a lot of people in 2016, but Emerson and Lake didn't really get the fanfare that I thought they probably deserved. Because ELP is enormously influential, not only in the world of prog rock, but I think in other worlds too, like, heavy metal and whatnot. They don't usually get that credit, but I mean, ELP was a heavy band in its day. Very heavy band. There were also, obviously super progressive, and the classical influences and all that, and bringing in, and the classical is kind of the big one that everyone talks about, but there's also a lot of jazz influence. Lake brought in a lot of folk influence, so it is a really nice blend of all these different things, which is exactly what that era was all about. Obviously worth noting, they're considered a super group, which is kind of a funny word that's thrown around. Basically, it just means that all the members of ELP had found success in other groups before. So Keith Emerson was coming from a band called The Nice, which I know tragically little about. I'll put an end to that one day. Greg Lake was coming off of King Crimson, which I do know a substantial bit more about. The first King Crimson, obviously. And Carl Palmer was part of Atomic Rooster as well. There's another one. Crazy World of Arthur Brown was another one that Palmer was a part of. So they were all pretty well-established musicians, and it was on a tour in '69, a couple of tours in '69. Greg Lake was touring with King Crimson, and Keith Emerson was touring with The Nice, and I think they were, one was opening for the other at one point or another, and they met and they said, oh, let's make a group then. So they did, and they left their other bands, and they eventually joined up with Carl Palmer, the drummer. And because they were already successful and famous to a certain extent, just the fact that they were playing together meant that they got an awful lot of press. So they actually got all the promotion and whatnot before anyone had heard a note, which is kind of a unique thing. And it means that they were already big, and they didn't really know the politics of what their band was to become when they first debuted back in, I think it was either '69 and I think it must have been 1970. It must have been 70 when they actually debuted. I might be wrong. Don't quote me. Google it. But yeah, they didn't really know exactly how it was going to work. When Emerson and Lake first got together, Emerson had pitched the idea of Pictures at an Exhibition, which is a Mussorgsky composition, classical stuff, that he wanted to interpret as full rock, heavy rock style. I don't think that made any sense, but you know how these videos go. And that was kind of their first idea, was let's do a rock version of this classical piece. And then they were already famous. What makes it really interesting as the band moves along deeper into their discography is the dichotomy between Keith Emerson and Greg Lake. With Emerson, you've got someone who's phenomenal guy on the keys, obviously, and the big thing that he brings to the table is these classical interpretations, which are big and grand and super proggy, and he's also basically what I should mention with Keith Emerson, he wants to be the Hendrix of the organ, but he also likes the classical stuff. So he's a rocker who appreciates the old stuff, and that's kind of what he brings to the table, the heaviness as well as the grandiosity, whatever the word is. And Greg Lake, even though within ELP was primarily the bass player, he's also, you know, kind of the songwriter. He's the guy that has the catchy melodies. You know, he writes the hooks, and you know, he wrote some really fine kind of folky acoustic ballads in the early days, which kind of became an ELP staple, which contrasts massively with all the stuff that Keith Emerson was bringing to the table. And I think both members wanted to use ELP as a vehicle for what they wanted to do. So, you know, Emerson wants to do his classical rock stuff, and Lake wants to do his singer-songwriter kind of stuff. And Carl Palmer is just kind of the guy in the middle, who's, you know, he's a pretty diverse drummer, and he likes playing the classical stuff, and he's willing to play the other stuff as well. So Palmer's kind of like he's the middle point of the teeter-totter, if you like. And, you know, ultimately, this weird balance eventually led to the band's destruction, but that tension also created some really fantastic music, and they released some really good albums, particularly in the early 70s. So yeah, that's kind of like how they formed and whatnot, I guess, is best I know. I wasn't there. I wasn't born until many years later. But yeah, you know, I've always been a big ELP fan. I like other bands more. You know, I like Genesis a little more. I like King Crimson a little bit more. Frank Zappa's a big influence and all that. But you know, ELP is, from a historical standpoint, massively important. And you know, musically they're great too. You know, just the bombast of it all and the bigness, and the playing too. You know, they got slagged off a lot for, you know, the whole, you know, the progressive thing of look what I can do. But that just kind of goes along with the territory, right? They're trying to do these classical interpretations of rock songs, and, you know, typically classical music can be quite complex and very arranged, and there's a lot to it. So, you know, are they showing off, or are they just playing what is inspiring them? You know, it's, you know, the go-to word with Emerson, Lake and Palmer is they're pretentious. They're so pretentious, but they're being really honest. Really, they're working with each other as best they can with the diverse range of influences that they have. And, you know, at no point until, you know, the late 70s do they try to be something that they're not. So they're not really a pretentious band. Yeah, I think that covers the gist of it. Hopefully this hasn't gone on too long. It's just a little introductory video. So yeah, that's it. You've got some ELP to look forward to if you're enjoying my videos. And if you are, like always, I'll say send me a like, send me a subscribe. Comments are lots of fun. And yeah, and thank you very much to all the other viewers who are out there who have joined in, and they're joining in the chat. And I apologize if I can't get to all the comments right away, but yeah, I try to do my best. And as the comments keep flooding in, it's kind of hard to keep up, and that's great. You know, it's great that people are joining in the chat. So thank you very much, everybody. And yeah, with that, I will sign off. So yeah, I've got the ELP stuff coming up. I've also got some more Kate Bush reviews that are coming out, and there's 2 more Jethro Tull reviews, which I'll probably release at the same time in the next day or 2 or the next week. Some point or another, you will get the final bits of the Jethro Tull reviews. So yeah. Thank you very much once again, and we'll see you all in the future.